America's democracy is facing a serious threat. Donald Trump, the president of US, has decided that he might use Insurrection Act in one of the states of US called as Minnesota. So the question is, can Trump use US military against its own people? What is the Insurrection Act? What kind of extraordinary situation requires the uses of such act by the American president? And the biggest question is that is US heading toward its worst internal crisis that it has seen in decades? Let us try to decode this entire issue in detail. So first of all, to give you context of this particular issue, we know that Donald Trump, the 47th president of USA, he has warned through social media posts that he would use Insurrection Act if necessary against the government of Minnesota, and this has come on the background of intensifying protest against the ICE officers. ICE basically refer to Immigration and Custom Enforcement officers. So the operations of ICE has been under scrutiny in many of the states of United States America, and Minnesota is where we have seen large scale violence that is going on as a pretext of what you can call as protest. Now also this is example of federal state political classes. We know that in US we have federal state structure of government. So central government, national government is headed by president, and at the regional level states are headed by the governor of each of the state as such. Overall, this crisis has attracted attention not only in Minnesota or Washington DC, but overall entire US is giving attention to and looking that how situation is going to unfold. Now before moving forward, we can try to look at the location of this particular state. So as you can see, this is the map of United States of America, and in the northern part of US, somewhere along the border of Canada, you see this area which is shaded in red. This is the state of Minnesota. In Minnesota, the overall, if you look here, the Minneapolis is the city where this large scale protest, violent protest has been going on. ICE officers also have been injured there, and also earlier they have carried out killing of innocent civilians as well on the pretext of arresting it, and this is the overall we can say genesis of an entire crisis as far as this area is concerned. Now, Trump on his favorite social media platform called as Truth Social, you can see he has written a long statement where he has warned that if the corrupt politicians of Minnesota, referring to the governor and his administration, if they do not obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE, who are only trying to do their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act as such. So if you look here, if Donald Trump indeed goes ahead and deploy the US military, in that case, what you can call as it will result to further, we can say, polarization of the American politics. Because also if you try to understand, this region of Minnesota is governed by Democratic Party while Trump belongs to Republican Party. So to some extent it is also being seen as a clashes between Republican and Democratic, two major political parties of United States of America. Here also he has said that his use of this act would be justified because he as the president has sole authority and right to determine whether it is the right time to basically use this act or not. Now, also if you look at the position of White House in this entire matter, the White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt, she also has stated that decision to employ the Insurrectionist Act or Insurrection Act completely lies with president as such. It is definitely an executive tool that is given to at the disposal of US president, and also she has accused that it were the Democratic Party members, it were the Democratic leaders, especially governor and his administration, who is responsible for creating this crisis, as they have completely failed to tackle this protest where ICE officers are being attacked. She also stated that White House believes that the violence is not only being done by the citizens and the protester, but they are also being encouraged due to the apathy of state government, who feel that they are giving shelter to these violent protesters as such. So overall, due to the responsibility of national government, or we can say President Trump, to ensure that the defense and security of states are not threatened, federal enforcement of Insurrection Act is indeed be done. So now the question comes, what is Insurrection Act? So first of all, under the Insurrection Act that was passed in year 1807, it is very old act. If you look at the history here, domestic troop deployment is completely at the disposal of president's discretion, where if he feels that law enforcement is being compromised, where the state government is not taking the adequate measures to protect the right, life and liberty of citizens, US president can send the military troops and the National Guard, and thus overrides the posse comitatus, where it means that the states of each of the individual state of United States of America will have basically right and responsibility to take care of their law and order situation. So in this context, the difference, we can say the separation of power that we see between the national government and the federal government, that would come or cease to exist as such. It completely depends on the description of the president as such. And overall, if you look at the history, it's not that Trump is going to impose it for the first time. Earlier also in US, several presidents have imposed this act to manage the law and order situation, and this however is done only if situation is of extreme nature as such. So whether this situation extreme or not, this is something again can be decided by president himself. So if you look at the past use of the act, overall in the entire human history since entire American history since 1807, total 30 times this act has been used. For example, recently in the 1982, when Los Angeles was facing a large-scale riot, that is when the act was used. Similarly, to control civil disorder. And overall, we can understand that obviously from 1807, if you look, more than 220 years have passed. So in 220 years, almost act has been used only 30 times. We can definitely say that such uses are rare in nature, but Trump, known for his unpredictability, obviously can be expected to use it if situations does not get better, or if he does not get the way what he wants. If you talk about the response of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, who belongs to Democratic Party, he clearly has made a remark that I am making a direct request to the President of USA that we should not let the situation turn more volatile. We should try to bring the temperature down. And he also has asked the protesters to not take law in their hand, to not engage in violence as such. So he's trying to basically calm the situation overall. He also is trying to basically, we talk about the mayor of the Minneapolis city where the protest is going on in the most violent manner. He also has asked him to basically calm the situation down. And at the same time, he has stated that any such deployment of troop should not be done, and it will further complicate the situations and further deteriorate the relation between the national and state government and such. So escalatory ladder is something that they are saying should not be climbed up by the president. If you try to understand that what is the reason or genesis of this entire episode, so the violent protest overall itself was triggered when a woman by the name of Rennie Nicole Good, as you can see from the photograph here, she was killed while being detained by the ICE officer. ICE again is referring to the agency of United States responsible for ensuring that illegal immigrants are detained and are deported back. So it stands for Immigration and Custom Enforcement. So one of the ICE officers, it is believed by looking at the cameras and all, that he deliberately tried to attack and shoot Ren Nicole Good when even she was not resisting any kind of arrest, or she was not even threatening the ICE officer as such. On the other hand, in the defense of ICE officer, he has stated that she was trying to use her vehicle to trample him, to basically to hit him. So that is why for his protection he has to take this extreme action of killing her or shooting her. So legal observers are claiming two different things based on which this party you look at. So overall, anyway, because of the news and killing of young woman, it has overall triggered a public outrage in the entire region of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and also in different states, especially where Democratic Party governors are ruling or basically are in administration and government. There we are seeing a scale of protest erupting against ICE as well. Vigils and protests are becoming a common sight these days as far as the US domestic political situation is concerned. Escalation also has taken place because just after killing of Red Nicole Good, similar kind of situation happened when ICE officers has shot against ICE officer shot a Venezuelan national and he was injured there. Because of this, protests began to erupt violently. There was clashes reported also, and due to this, police had no other option but to use the tear gases. So overall, we can say many of the cities of US these days are going through mass urban unrest, and the reason behind this can be considered as simple: the anti-immigrant policies and strict policies of Donald Trump administration. Now, if you look at the public opinion, majority of people oppose this kind of shooting by ICE officer because, again, by looking at the video footage, it is clear that she was not a this what you can call as she was not a threat to the ICE officer as such. So overall, there was a concern that power is being misused by these officers, especially the law enforcement officers who are being emboldened by the Trump's anti-immigrant policies. And also, many of the politicians have protested against the use of troop by the President of the United States of America. So overall, we are seeing a partisan divide as far as the domestic politics of US is concerned, to the extent that we might have not seen in the recent decades. The debate is also going on around the civil liberties, because US claim to be a democracy. US claim to be what you can call as the country that respect the right of everyone, and in this context the killing of Rennie Good has raised the biggest question that to what extent this might hold true. So that's all for this particular video. If you like it, please share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more such content. Thank you very much.